district in the state, so thank you for the shout out. The public hearing is your opportunity to be part of the legislative process and to express your position on the proposed legislation before us. Please note that due to the similar topics addressed by the bill, they are to be heard in a combined hearing. This means that you will be able to testify on one or both at the same time. This is to ensure that everyone who wants to testify, we will have the opportunity to do so. If a large crowd is present, there will be an overflow room used, I believe, either down the hall or next door. Individuals who will be testifying will be guaranteed 3 minutes to present their testimony. Testifiers will come up in the order of rows of seating, starting with the right side of the room. And I believe we will do 6 down the row, Julie, and 6 again. And we will go row by row. We will not use our usual procedure of asking for proponents or opponents or neutral. When it is your turn, you will announce in your opening which bills you are testifying for and your position. Please complete a green testifier sheet. I see most of you have one. For each of the bills you will be testifying for. After you have testified, you will need to exit the room. When the testifiers are all done, we will then call the introducing senator to come up for their closing and remarks. Overflow attendants will be seated in the overflow room and managed by the Sergeant of Arms. If there are testifiers waiting in the overflow room, we will take a break after an hour and allow those in the room to move forward and those in the overflow room to fill the rows in the back of the room. If the hearing runs long, we will take a 30-minute dinner break at 5 p.m. Again, if you're planning to testify today, please fill out one of the green sheets for each of the bills you are testifying. These forms are on the table in the back. Be sure to print clearly and fill the form out completely. When it is your turn to come forward to testify, give the testifier sheet to the page or the committee clerk. If you do not wish to testify, but you would like to indicate your position on the bill, there are also yellow sheets in the back of the room to fill out, and these sheets will be included as the exhibit in the official hearing record today. When you come up to testify, please speak clearly into the microphone. Tell us your name, and be sure to spell your first and last name to ensure we get an accurate record. We will begin the bill hearing today with both introducers giving their opening statements. Then we will move through the rows in the audience, and this will allow you to have an ability to testify on one or both items being heard today. We will finish with a closing statement by both introducers if they wish to have one. We will be using a 3-minute light system for all testifiers. When you begin your testimony, the light on the table will be green. When the yellow light comes on, you will have 1 minute of remaining time, and the red light will indicate your time has ended. Questions from the committee may follow. Also, committee members may come and go during the hearing. This has nothing to do with the importance of the bills being heard. It's just part of the process, as senators may have bills to introduce in other committees as well. A few final items to facilitate today's hearing. If you have any handouts or copies of your testimony, please bring up at least 12 copies and give them to the page. If you do not have 12 copies, the page will make sufficient copies for you. Please silence all cell phones or electronic devices. You may see committee members using their electronic devices so they can access more information. Verbal outbursts or applause are not permitted in the hearing room. Such behavior may be cause for you to be asked to leave themselves, starting on my far right.
Hi, everybody. Thank you all for being here. I'm Megan Hunt, and I represent District 8 in the northern part of Midtown Omaha.
Good afternoon, Denixie Greca, Legislative District 7, downtown in South Omaha.
John Kavanaugh, District 9, Midtown Omaha.
Good afternoon, I'm Bob Anderson representing District 49, Northwest Sarpy County in Omaha.
Good afternoon, Dan Linuski, and I represent District 33, Adams County, Phelps County, and Kearney County.
Welcome, Dave Wardekemper, District 15, Dodge County, Western Douglas County.
Dan McHugh, District 41, Central Nebraska, 8 counties.
And then to my right is our legal, yes. We have our attorney for the committee here with us today. Also, Senator Anderson is the vice chair. And I believe we have Julie Condon, which is our clerk for the day. She's the clerk of the
Political science major at UNL.
My name is Wesley Earhart. I'm a senior political science major at UNL.
I'm Arnav. I'm a junior political science major, also at UNL.
Thank you. We will begin today's hearing, and we will ask the governor's office that are here today to please. Yes, we do need the test first. So we have LB3, if you'd like to present, Senator Lippincott, and then we'll go to LR24CA and then testifiers.
Chairman Sanders and committee members, greetings. My name is Lauren Lippincott. I represent the 34th District. My name is spelled L-O-R-E-N-L-I-P-P-I-N-C-O-T-T. First, let me just say that it's really encouraging to see the turnout today. It reminds you that, in fact, our government is we, the people. Some of my close friends are on the other side of the fence on this particular bill, and it just reminds me that we always need to have an open mind. As a matter of fact, my staff reminded me a little while ago of a great quote by Aristotle, who said, "It is a sign of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it." So I've kept that in mind. I want to talk about three different things. Number one, let's talk about what the Electoral College is, the district plan that Nebraska and Maine have, and then arguments for and against. So we'll discuss these things just one at a time. Earlier today, I walked around the legislature and I asked people, how is it determined how many, and then arguments for and against. So we'll discuss these things just one at a time. Earlier today, I walked around the legislature and I asked people, how is it determined how many electoral votes each state gets? And there's kind of a fog, a mist that kind of hangs over this whole idea about the Electoral College. Let's just take that apart right now. We know that Nebraska has 5 electoral votes. We have 2 that are allotted for our U.S. Senate, and then 3 that are allotted for our U.S. representatives. Now, our friends across the border in Wyoming, they're the least populated state in the nation. They have 3 electoral votes, 2 for the U.S. Senate, 1 for the U.S. representative. And our friends way out on the West Coast in California is the most populated state in the nation with 39 million people in the state. They have 54 electoral votes. They've got 2 for the U.S. Senate and 52 for the House of Representatives. So we see there's a little bit of a disparity between the number of electoral votes that each state has. And the reason why that is important, and the reason why winner take all is important, is this. The U.S. Senate, the Electoral College, and winner take all, what it does is it spreads out representation geographically. It prevents pockets of power resting in populated areas. Now let me give you an example of that, what I mean by that. You have 6 cities in the United States that has more population than 14 states, including the great state of Nebraska. Los Angeles, San Francisco, Chicago, Philadelphia, Boston, and New York City have a greater population than the combined 14 states. So in essence, if we just had a House of Representatives, our vote would just be completely wiped out. Another way of looking at it is this. If you just take the single city of New York City, of 8.2 million people, they have a greater population than 39 individual states, including Nebraska. So what the U.S. Senate does, and what the Electoral College does, is it spreads out representation amongst the entire United States. That's a good thing. Now, something's been going right because we're approaching 250 years for this constitutional republic that we have. We do not have a democracy. This is a constitutional republic. That's what we have. And something's going right because the average length of a constitution, considering all nations throughout the history since 1776 to present day, 17 years. That's kind of shocking. Shocked me the first time I heard that. We're approaching 250 years. As a matter of fact, it's a great quote from Thomas Jefferson. He said, a comparison between the governments in Europe and the comparison to our government here that we came up with is like the difference between heaven and hell. It's quite a contrast. Now, there's been several different selling points that have been heard talking about the so-called blue dot. We've all been hearing about the blue dot of Omaha, the 2nd Congressional District. People say it brings the candidate to Nebraska. Now, the staff and I, we've looked from 1946 forward, which is well before 1992, and well after 1992, no difference. The number of visits that presidents and vice presidents have made coming to Nebraska, no difference. So it's a great selling point, bringing in candidates into Nebraska, selling the blue dot idea. The problem is, it's not true. Then the other selling point that you hear is it brings a ton of money into Nebraska. And that's a good thing. Now, this one was a little tougher than just looking up the president and vice president visiting the states. We had to look through the money coming into the Republican Party, coming into the Democrat Party, coming into cities, commerce, money coming into the TV stations, the newspapers, all the different ads. So it took some research. But again, we looked a long time ago to present day, before and after we became the district plan. No difference. Well, how about Dan Osborne? That was the U.S. Senate. That was not the president. So let's talk about apples and apples, not apples and something else. So again, you will hear today in your comments from a lot of folks that our district plan that we have currently brings in the candidates and brings in lots of money. The problem is, it sounds good, it's not true. We've done the research on that. Also, people will tell you the voter turnout is increased with the district plan. Again, that is not true. Now, I have handed out my talking points, my briefing guide, and I'm not really following it verbatim, but you do have a lot of this material in front of you. Now, people will say, you know, the district plan is a great idea. It's more like democracy, and we already talked about we're not a democracy, we're a constitutional republic. But let's just say, for instance, that the entire United States, overnight, they said, you know what, Nebraska and Maine really have a great idea, and this district plan really seems to work well. So the other 48 states, they joined us, and everybody's district plan now. Well, in that case, then we would have had President Mitt Romney in 2012. He would have won the election with 277 electoral votes. And of course, he did not. That's because we have winner take all. Most of the states have that. Some people will also say, well, you know what? This winner take all, it's disenfranchising the people in Omaha. It's making their votes not count. We don't want that. That would be a horrible idea. Well, in this last election, overall, if you look at all the different states, Donald Trump, he won 31 of the states. And Kamala Harris, she won 20. That doesn't add up to 52, or 50 states. It's 51. That's because you have to factor in the District of Columbia. So that's that. But when you're looking at this district plan versus the winner-take-all plan, if you well, let me just back up and just say this. The whole district plan that Maine started back in 1972 was to give a voice to third-party candidates. That's how it all started. Now, the third-party candidate back in 1972 was John Schmidt, who was a Republican from California, Orange County. Now, have you heard of him? No. You haven't heard of him? I haven't heard of him. But that's the reason this whole kerfuffle started. But let's just take that to a logical conclusion. Let's say that you have 3 people running for president. One person has 34% of the vote, 2 other people have 33% of the vote. Do you get a mandate with that? No, you do not. And also, not only is that important, but this is more important, and that is if no one gets a majority of the electoral votes, which is 270, you take 538 votes, divide that in half, 269 plus 1 is 270. That's why on election night we always are looking for 270. But if nobody comes up with 270, a majority of electoral votes, guess what? Goes straight to Washington, D.C. to the House of Representatives, where every state gets 1 vote. And in this last election, Donald Trump would have gotten 31 votes. So that would be to the chagrin of my Democrat friends here in the room. They wouldn't want that. And I don't think the Republicans would want that either. That's how this whole thing started, to give a third-party candidate a voice. Now, another thing that it does, and that is this would enhance gerrymandering, which is to manipulate the political boundaries of the electorate if we had everyone went to the district plan. I don't think anybody wants it. Matter of fact, I've heard some of my Republican friends talk about shifting the boundaries of the 2nd Congressional District, which takes place in 2030. So I don't think that we want that. That's not a good idea. Again, the bottom line on all of this is winner take all. The Electoral College, the United States Senate prevents pockets of power in populated areas, which is what we do not want. We want representation to be split out amongst all states. Another thing that we're seeing, and this is kind of subjective in nature, but that is this. We talk about the blue dot. And what's happening is we have us versus them. Do we want that? I don't think so. I think that having winner take all is unifying. I flew all around the United States. I flew all around the world, flying for Delta Airlines for 30 years. And it's just amazing how many people you'll see with Nebraska sweatshirts on, because Nebraskans are proud. And anytime I'd see them, I'd always go up to them, and of course we'd talk about, we're going to have a winning team this year. I just know we will. But Nebraskans are proud people. They really are, and I say that not simply because I'm a Nebraskan, but I really have seen that around the world. And so, and I hear chuckling back here, but truly, I do believe we want to avoid the us versus them. And I think that that's what happens with our district plan. And again, I know that that's a subjective call. I get that. I think in any of these things, we have to think principle brings about politics, not the other way around. And I think that the principle of The idea that winner takes all, the Electoral College, the U.S. Senate, all of these things promote the idea that we do not concentrate and we prevent pockets of power being concentrated in heavily populated areas. It spreads it out. Be happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you, Senator Lippincott. Let me check from the committee. Senator Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Lippincott, thanks for being here, and thanks to everybody else for being here. I've got a lot of questions, so if other people want to jump in, that's fair. I guess my first question is, you understand land doesn't vote, right?
Correct.
That people vote?
Yes.
And that people are the ones represented in government? And that's why we have congressional districts, and why the Supreme Court has previously held that districts have to have an equal number of people. You understand all that?
May I address that? for just a
Questions
moment?
directed at you,
Yeah. This is kind of interesting. I didn't realize a lot of these things. A U.S. representative represents approximately 700,000 people, and the number of U.S. representatives was fixed in the 1930s, and it hasn't changed. When your dad was serving, there was X number of people in his congressional district, and that number probably has changed in the 2nd congressional district as the population of America has changed. So you're correct, land does not vote, people vote, that's true. But as the numbers change, we have, we have 535 senators and representatives. So, take 100 off that, we got 435 representatives. That number's fixed right now. So, for instance, in Nebraska, it's right around 700,000 people, which is the norm. Now, Montana, their one U.S. representative represents just a smidgen over 1 million people. That's a lot. And in Rhode Island, they have 2 U.S. representatives, and they represent approximately, it's right around 500,000 people. So they represent the least, Montana is the most, so there is a bit of a sliding rule there.
Right. The standard is, not to digress, but the standard is every state gets at least one, which is why Wyoming has a much smaller number.
Correct.
And Montana actually picked one up in the last redistricting, so they have 2 now. They're back up to 2.
Okay?
But there is a minimum that every state gets a representation. I guess just one of my fundamental problems with your jumping off point here is that we should be purposefully diluting the voice of people because they live in a populated area. That's, right? Is that the premise of your argument? That we shouldn't be packing power in population, right? So I guess my question, why should we dilute the vote of individuals in the interest of geography and land?
Nope. That's because there's a balance. There's a balance between the U.S. Senate, which is geographic in nature, and the U.S. House of Representatives.
And don't you think the district plan strikes that balance by having district electors and then statewide electors?
No, sir, I do not. I'll give you a for instance. Donald Trump, in this last election, he got 195,000 votes more than Harris. Harris, she won Omaha by 15,000 votes. So Donald Trump, Harris was 1/13 of what Donald Trump got. Okay, so that is 7% of the popular vote, whereas she received 20th of the electoral votes because she got 1 out of 5.
Okay.
So my point here, sir, is that there is a balance, and I hear what you're saying, but the founding fathers, they said we need to take the U.S. Senate, which spreads it out, because knowing that the population with the House is going to, in fact, represent highly populated areas. I mean, take, for instance, our legislature here in Nebraska. There's 14 state senators from Omaha. There's 9 from Lincoln, or Lancaster County. There's 5 from Sarpy. So 9 plus 5 is 14, 14 and 14 is 28, that's 57% of our Nebraska legislature is Lincoln and Omaha.
Right, that's where 57% of people live as well, right?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. So I'm glad you brought up the percentage vote, because the governor put that in his press release, and I was very curious about this. So you just said, I think you said 7%. The governor's press release said 8% of people voted for Kamala Harris.
Correct.
And you're saying that 8% should not merit 20% of the electors, right? So do you think 29% of the people should be able to decide 100% of the electors?
Let me take your argument and go even further. The state of California had 9 congressional districts
Well,
that voted.
I'd like you to answer my question.
I'm addressing your principle that you're trying to promote.
Okay, should 29% of the people get to decide 100% of the electors?
Say it again.
Should 29% of the people get to decide 100% of the electors?
With the last election, Donald Trump won the state of Nebraska as a whole overwhelmingly. And if I might just follow on to that, the president presides over the entire state, just as the Secretary of State is elected by all the people in Nebraska, presides over all the people in Nebraska. Same is true for the governor, the auditor, the attorney general. So shouldn't the president be elected by all of the people, since he presides over all of the people?
Okay, so my question is, should 29% of the people get to decide all of the electors?
No.
Okay. President Trump got 29% of the vote under your math, whereas Kamala Harris got 8% of the people. She got 29% of the popular vote. She got 12% statewide of the voters. She got a majority of the vote in the 2nd Congressional District. Donald Trump got 44% of the voters, 29% of the people. When you say Kamala Harris got 7% of the people and choosing 20% electors, you're saying she got 7% of all Nebraskans.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying to you is, one, your math is questionable.
More than. I said she got more than.
Well, even if you grant the governor's math at 8%. And
Say
what I
again?
guess I'm trying to say is, you inherently right here, you're trying to diminish the value of the votes of those people. That's why you're saying that they're only 8% when they really are. And then you just said President Trump got a majority of the vote in the state, which is, he got the plurality, not the majority. He got 44% of those casting ballots. So when you say 8%, we'll say, use the governor's number, 8% of people voted for 20% of the electors. That is not a fair comparison or accurate representation of the values of those people, right? That those people voted and they got a majority of the ballots cast in the election that they voted in, right? Is that right?
Continue.
Well, no, I'm asking, that was a question. The people in the 2nd Congressional District, Kamala Harris got a majority of the votes in the 2nd
She
Congressional.
did, by 15,000 votes.
Right.
Correct.
Okay. If anybody else has a question.
Yeah.
I wanted to remind Senator Lippincott, I wanted to remind everyone, and they're very attentive, that we are here to listen to the public that are here to speak. The two of you will have time to debate on the floor, and so in respect to those that are here, if we could continue the debate on the floor if it gets out of committee, if that is okay. I think we might have other questions from the committee.
What? I have more questions. I'll let Senator Anderson go.
You had a long question.
Senator
I
Anderson.
have a lot of questions.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Senator Lippincott, I understand doing simple Googling that Maine in 2024 is beginning their migration from a district allocation to winner take all. That means Nebraska will be the only one that does the district allocation of electoral college votes. Are you aware of any state that's moving from winner take all to the district method? Any of the other 48 states in the union?
No, I am not. And that's a great question. As a matter of fact, just this past year, I was at a function in Washington, D.C., one down in Texas, And I did talk with some state legislators that were from the state of Maine. And they said that, and they were Republicans, and they said that if Nebraska moves back to winner take all, most likely they in Maine will be winner take all. So a lot of people will say, well, this is a move of the Republican Party to bully their way into getting another electoral vote. I hear that. But most likely, if we went to winner take all, Maine most likely would go back to winner take all. So it would be a wash. So it's not a bullying thing. This is based on principle. And if I may just follow up very briefly on what Senator Kavanaugh said just a few moments ago, and that is this. It's the whole idea of disenfranchising, because we hear that. I hear you loud and clear. And that's not invalid. That's a valid point, a valid concern. But if that's true, the same principle then should be applied to California and their 9 votes that would have gone to Trump but did not. And that figures out to be around 6 million people or so. So are those people disenfranchised? Or the people in New York State? Or the people that are in New York State with their 7 electoral votes? Are they disenfranchised? So that is a question. And again, if everybody went to the district plan like what we have, it wouldn't necessarily favor the Democrats or the Republicans. So it's kind of a wash.
Senator Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not going to apologize for asking questions. I think this is an important topic. There's a lot of people here, and a number of them are my constituents who don't want their voice silenced. So the reason I went on the numbers is your entire introduction was a lot of false equivalencies. And you just made another one. We're not senators in California. Don't have the opportunity to change California. To be clear, I have been opposed to the Electoral College. I wrote a paper against it in 7th grade in favor of popular vote. So I'm a long-time popular vote guy. So the question, and I'm glad you cleared up the part about Maine, because yes, Maine was in response to us, but I wanted to go back to when you said, if we don't go to winner take all, there's the threat of gerrymandering to basically make a 2nd congressional district that would be winnable by a Republican. Doesn't that kind of tell the story here that this is about trying to create an electoral system where only one party can win, or the outcome that is desired by those that have the most power can get more power?
No.
Okay, why not?
That's just all hearsay, which, as you well know, in a court of law, it doesn't go anywhere.
But you said it. You're the one who said people are saying that. And you said it as a reason why I should vote to go to winner take all.
Well, you know that gerrymandering is a consideration in all of this.
Okay. So why should we make a decision to take away the representative vote of the people, specifically my constituents, because some other people are upset about how the election went?
There needs to be uniformity and standardization in how elections are done. That's why, why is it that nobody else has jumped on board with coming on to the district plan? If it's such a great idea, how come they're not doing it in Illinois? And we are part of the United States. So, things that in California, New York, Illinois, that actually does make a difference. It's driven by principle, not by politics.
And if you were here proposing a convention of states, will say, to eliminate the Electoral College and go to national popular vote, I'd be a co-sponsor of that. But that's not what we're talking about.
Right.
We're talking about creating a less representative election. Fundamentally, right?
No.
How is it not less representative if you come out, you have some people voted one way, some people voted another way, and right now you do get some representation based on how you vote, but under a winner-take-all system, everybody's voice is registered the same regardless of how they voted. How is that more representative? Or certainly,
It's because we're one of 50, that's why.
right, but we are us,
Yeah.
and we get to choose how we speak our voice, right?
Yes.
So, I guess I'm not persuaded by the argument that we should speak with one voice. I think that we should speak with the diversity of opinions and be willing to accept that diversity of opinions.
Okay, I just fundamentally disagree with you. Yeah, but thank you for bringing that up.
I get that, and I do appreciate your having a conversation. I can tell everybody else is sick of hearing me.
No, we're not.
I think they're waiting.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of other people who want to talk. Well, Senator Lippincott, I will save any other questions I have for another day, and I'm sure you will find me on the floor and we'll talk about it. But thank you.
I appreciate your questions.
Thank you, Senator Kavanaugh. Senator Lanowski.
Thank you, Chair. Senator Lippincott, can you give us a brief history of when we came to this split electoral vote? 1 minute explanation?
1 minute. Well, you know that Maine went in 1972. Nebraska thought it was a trend. They tried it in 1990, it failed. 1991, it failed. 1992, it passed by 25 votes, not a supermajority like we need today with the filibuster. So 25 votes. The legislature thought, golly gee whiz, I think we made a mistake. A few years later, in 1995, they reversed course. The legislature did. The Democrat governor, Ben Nelson at the time, he vetoed it. The veto was not overridden, so it stayed in place. Groundhog Day, 2 years later, 1997, again, the legislature, they reversed course. We made a mistake. They undid it. The governor vetoed it, and that's where we are today. There were not enough votes for the veto. So all in all, there's been an attempt to reverse the district plan 11 different times, and that's where we are today.
Thank you.
60 seconds.
Thank you, Senator Lanowski. Are there any other questions from the committee? I see none. Thank you. Senator Hunt.
I'll just put one more thought out there for you to think about, and you can certainly respond to it. I want to ask again, and hopefully receive an explicit answer. How is it more representative government for 29% of the people to choose 100% of the electors?
That's a repeat of what Senator Kavanaugh said. Again, everybody needs to play by the same rules. We are one of 50.
Everyone in the United States, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Why would we stop at election law? Why don't we say, the electric vehicle credits that you can get in California, we should get that here too, because we should have one voice and we should have one, nation under God with the same laws. Why not recognize that as a state we have the authority to decide how we're going to do our elections, and that perhaps could it be that our system is even superior? And could it be that the reason that states like California and New York and Illinois don't go to a system like ours is because they would lose power? And the reason that you and others want to go to this system is because you will gain power. So I think it would be okay to explicitly admit that it is about power.
Well, first off, I thank you for that question, same one that he had just a few moments ago.
Okay.
And again, we do have that ability, that option, because that's why we have the district plan right now. So, if it's such a great idea, why aren't any of the other states following?
Because they would lose power. It's the same reason they don't have a unicameral, for example. They don't want to vote themselves out of a job. They don't want to take a vote to remove their power. Does that make sense to you? You look confused.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, and I hear you loud and clear, and that's, it's a great question. Just I disagree with it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Thank you, Senator Hunt. Are there any other questions? See none. Thank you, Senator Lippincott. We'll now hear from Senator Dorn on LR 24CA. Welcome, Senator Dorn.
Thank you, and I just want to say welcome Chairman Sanders and the rest of the committee, but I also want to thank Chairman Sanders and the legal counsel working with me, with Senator Lippincott, so that we can have this, I call it this hearing together, so that we don't have two separate hearings on this, because these are kind of the same, a lot of the same topics or whatever. So thank you very much for all of that. Good afternoon, Senator Sanders and members of the Government, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee. My name is Myron Dorn, M-Y-R-O-N, D-O-R-N. I represent District 30, which is all of Gage County and southeastern Lancaster County. I am introducing LR 24CA, which is a proposed constitutional amendment to return Nebraska to a winner-take-all electoral system. I favor returning to this option, that's the winner-take-all, and I want the committee to know that I've told Senator Lippincott and a lot of other people, I will be voting for Senator Lippincott's LB3. Having said that, there are two reasons why I've introduced this constitutional amendment. First, when looking at a national election, I think all states should have the same standard. I know states can control their election process, which is why we currently have our split electoral vote in this statute in the state of Nebraska. The electoral process was designed to balance out larger states' voters' population to those of smaller, less populated states. By having the winner take all across the country, it reflects the majority of that state's vote. I believe Nebraska needs to be a winner-take-all state. The second reason for LR 24CA is to have the voters decide this issue. There could be an initiative petition to try to change state law, but that would have to be citizen-driven. The only way the legislature can ask the voters to decide this issue is with a constitutional amendment, hence LR 24CA. If the legislature were to approve LR 24CA, the amendment would be placed on the next general election ballot, which is in 2026. The timing is right for this proposal because there is no current presidential election being impacted by the change like there would have been in 2024. I don't see this as a Republican issue. There are states where the Democratic Party is the dominant party, and I will not allow the change, and they will not allow the change to a split electoral vote. When dealing with national elections, I believe all the states should have the same standards. And with that said, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Senator Dorn. Let's see if we have any questions from the committee. Senator Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Chairwoman, and thanks for being here, Senator Dorn. I appreciate your unique take. So my question is, I've read in the press that the governor doesn't like your proposal, and I'm familiar with that experience. And I know you've talked with the governor about it, and I'm wondering if you can tell us why.
I think some of the governor's people are here, and I think it would be a lot better if you heard from them. We had a good discussion. Senator Brandt and myself and Senator Hughes was on the phone with us, and this was unfortunately when the governor, we had a date scheduled, and he was in Omaha in the hospital, but we did met with Kenny Zoller and his chief of staff, Lopez. I would rather have you ask him that question so that they can answer it. I have my thoughts on it, but I'm not sure they line up the same with his.
Well, I'd love to hear yours, especially if they don't line up.
I think their main concern is that they would like to get something across, be successful in this legislative session that we have for winner take all. And as I would take their take on it, they don't want something to pull away from Senator Lippincott's belt. I don't either. That's not why I introduced this. I've had comments or discussion with Chairman Sanders. I intend to hold mine in committee. I don't intend to pull it out. I hope that this committee would vote his out. I want to see where his goes, and that's why I've said all along I will support Senator Lippincott's. Having said that, if there is a problem with getting that across, I, in this session, then want to be able to maybe have the opportunity to pull this out and have this proposal heard.
Okay, so your take is that the governor wants to score political points this legislative session, and it's not, see, my take, I'll tell you, just now that I'm testifying, but my take was that the governor's concerned that if we enshrine it in the Constitution, when the population centers achieve a critical mass, it'll be harder to change it, and we'll be stuck with a Democratic majority at the state level.
Like I told you, Kenny's here. That is a good
I'm
question
just
for them. I gave you my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's right or wrong. That's a good question to ask them.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it, Senator
Yeah.
Dorn. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Kavanaugh. Are there any other questions? Thank you for your testimony.
And I did talk with you about, we are in appropriations, we were going over the budget. Senator Lippincott and I are both in appropriations, so we don't always, we want to have as many people as we can there. As I sit here today, my staff, Janet, she will be here all day taking notes. I will probably weigh my closing. She is going to text me back and forth. If I need to come back, I sure can. We will check in off and on as there is time, but I intend to pretty soon go back to the Appropriations Committee. So just so people are aware of what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Dorn. We'll now call up invited guests from the governor's office. Welcome.
Hey, thank you. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Sanders and members of the Government, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee. My name is Kenny Zoller, that is spelled Kennyzoeller, and I serve at the pleasure of Governor Pillen as his Director of the Governor's Policy Research Office. I'm here to testify in support of LB3, which is often referred to as winner take all. I'd like to thank Senator Lippincott for introducing this bill on behalf of the Governor. As Governor Pillen has stated multiple times, it's time that we end the 30-year experiment of allocating our electoral college votes by congressional district. As you know, we are one of only 2 states that allocates our electoral college votes in this fashion. The promised benefit of our current congressional allocation system have been exaggerated or simply not met. Our current system has not resulted in increased presidential attention during campaigns, as neither major political party's presidential candidate visited Nebraska in 2024. Also, our current allocation system has not resulted in a massive economic windfall for the state, since nearly all presidential campaign expenditures are untaxed. Simply put, our current system is just bad public policy. This fact is also backed up by multiple third-party independent organizations. Fair Vote, a nonpartisan organization, has researched multiple ways to allocate electoral college votes. According to them, the congressional allocation system makes the presidential election less meaningfully competitive. Additionally, it increases the likelihood of a candidate winning the election without winning the popular vote. For example, if this system was used nationwide in 2012, as referenced before, Mitt Romney would have won the presidency despite losing the popular vote by 5 million votes. National Popular Vote, an independent nonprofit organization, also states how splitting electoral college votes has negative impacts, specifically that it increases the desire and temptation to gerrymander districts. Nebraska is an outlier in how we appropriate our electoral college votes. We ignore 2/3 of our state by prioritizing one single congressional district. We simply are not on a level playing field with the other 48 states. If our current allocation system was fair, then why isn't California, New York, Texas, or Florida doing the same thing? I respectfully ask that the committee advances LB3 to general file. Thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Zoller. We'll check to see from the committee if there are any questions. Senator Kavanaugh.
Thank you. And I know it's uncouth to ask staff when in place questions, but since you said it and you opened it up.
Yeah.
First off, thanks for being here, Mr. Zoller. Always a pleasure.
Yeah.
Did you want to respond to any things questions I generally directed towards the governor, but at Senator Lippincott and Senator Dorn?
Yeah, absolutely. So the one directed to Senator Dorn, if I forget any, please feel free to re-ask him. The governor, from his perspective, would like to caution putting an item in the Constitution that frankly should be changed, and we should have the legislature be nimble in changing. So it's not as, from the statement that you made previously, that is fundamentally false from the governor's standpoint. He wants to make sure that we position Nebraska in a way to make sure that we are taking advantage of a new electoral college system. So let's say that 28 or 30 states switch back to the congressional allocation system, then maybe at that point it will be advantageous for Nebraska to switch to that system. Or as another example, if a majority of states decided to go to a proportionate allocation system, which would divvy up votes by the actual statewide total. So let's say if you get 40% voting for one candidate, 60% voting for the other, you divvy up your electoral college votes that way, then that's something that frankly Nebraska should take advantage of. The problem with an LRCA is the legislature doesn't have the capability that I'm aware of putting a statutory item to the ballot to a vote of the people. And if we decide, if the legislature decides to put an LRCA on the ballot and it passes, then we could set ourselves up in a situation where we would not be able to change our congressional allocation system for the presidential election. So that's the primary reasons that he's opposed to it.
Thank you. Thank you for the answer. And it's not false. I was just wrong. I'm okay with being wrong. That's fair. I don't take offense at being wrong.
Yeah.
A couple of things. Well, so first of all, we've been sitting here, somebody sent me that the state of New Hampshire actually has a bill right now considering changing to the district method. So maybe, all this conversation that we've started here in Nebraska is creating some momentum.
It's all good earned media, I guess, for congressional allocation system.
Maybe we'll get some tourism to come check it out. So, and one of the things you said, and I don't want to belabor you being here, and I appreciate it again, was that this 30-year experiment. And with all due respect, it's not an experiment, it's just how we do it. And I just wondered if you were aware, or anybody was aware, that for the first 100 or so years of our country, that it was pretty regular for states to divide their electoral votes. Lots of states did them by congressional district for a long time, some did the proportional method. And so it's not an experiment, it's not revolutionary, it is something that was consistent with the beginning of our country and is sort of maybe has become in vogue again in the last 30 or so years. So that's not really a question, I guess. I'm just telling you that. You can respond.
Well, yeah, I mean, the reason why I call it an experiment is because how the states divvy up electoral college votes should never be permanent. So we should always be taking a look at what is the best public policy for the state of Nebraska as a whole, and frankly, change the way we allocate our electoral college votes to best represent the people at any given election. So, the reason why I was very specific with the term experiment is because how we change or how we divvy up our electoral college votes should never be set in stone, and we should always have the opportunity to change it.
Thanks for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Kavanaugh. Are there any other questions from the committee? I see none. Thank you, Mr. Zoller.
Yep, thank you guys.
And I think we can move forward with our public comment period now. So we will, we'll be starting on our right, and then second row. Mr. Love, please come forward. We'll allow it. And then we're going to start at the far right, and then we're going to go left. Welcome to the government.
Thank you.
Military.
I want you to know my name is Preston Love Jr. and that I wrote a wonderful testimony for this hearing. And it was written as a statesman. I take it back.
If you could please spell your name.
Prestonlove. I take it back. I'm not going to try to be a statesman because I've listened to the commentary and I'm going to have to just be real on my reactions, and I put my statement in the wastebasket and I give you my reaction to the dialogue. And it's not, I'm embarrassed that I no longer can be a statesman for at least the rest of the day. Number one, I just want to say that I am amazed about some of the facts are facts, conclusions I disagree with. Most of the conclusions from the facts, I don't have the time to be able to deal with each one. I want to say that. Secondly, I don't think it's fair to bring Maine in and their methodology and their purpose. Third party has nothing to do with the Nebraska scenario. It's irrelevant. Also, I highly disagree, and I must see the numbers, but I know that in Congressional District 2 in Omaha, we had a tremendous economic impact during the Blue Dot set. We had people, money all over the place. People got jobs, knocking on doors. The idea that there is no economic impact is not true. Thirdly, I hope that you heard the laughter when we talked about that this may put us in a position where we become they and us. We're already there. We're already there. It is they versus us in so many ways. I ran for office and I spent most of my campaign talking about let's stop doing they for us, but we are there. And we are a partisan legislature. We are Republicans and Democrats, the they and the us, fighting this battle and so many others. Maybe we should since the other states don't do it the way we do, let's get rid of the unicameral and be like the other states. No, we're not going to do that. So don't use the argument that the other states don't, the other 48 don't do it, so why should we do it? Well, that's not good thinking. We should just evaluate what this means to us. And if I don't have time, it's already yellow light start. I just want to say, listen to a segment of your community, of your state, a whole congressional district that's saying, give us a chance to let our votes count. I feel so good about the fact that when I voted, that my candidate produced an electoral vote. And collectively, I can't speak for everyone, I think everyone in Congressional District 2 feels that way. Are you just ignoring us? Let's forget about the number analysis. We're talking about good Nebraskans who are voting, and in spite of the fact that our presidential candidate did not win the state, we feel good about the voting process, and we feel good about the process. So now that it's going this way, you want to take it back. I could tell you about my grandfather and my father and the troubles that they had. I know my time is up. So I'd ask for you to, in conclusion, to just look at this in another way. You have a whole third of your state that doesn't want you to do what you do. So if you're going to just be strong theys, then you do it to us. And by the way, on the way out, you're already gerrymandering Congressional District 2.
Thank you, Mr. Love, for your proposal. Let's see if there are any questions
Yes.
from the committee. Senator Kavanaugh.
I'll be brief. Thank you, Chair. Mr. Love, good to see you. I would love to have a copy of your prepared remarks for my files.
Yeah. I wanted, in my prepared files, I do talk about the impediments for my race to vote over the years. My grandfather was impeded. He never had a chance to vote. My father, my famous jazz father, was impeded as he tried to vote in Nebraska. But we did some good things. One of the things we did, we made voter registration easier, but we also did district elections. Do you know, other than the state senate, that in our city council, in our county commissioners, we were never able to get anybody elected around our community until we went to districts election. That's a good thing. Maybe we should bring that up and try to take that back. I see this proposal to take back winner take all in the same category, trying to move back. But the one thing that was mentioned is the bullying. I do see this as bullying because my dear friend, Pete Ricketts, raised the issue of winner take all right after we won the electoral vote in 2020. And so the governor, my dear friend, we both played for the University of Nebraska. We're dear friends, except for on winner take all, I want to go to box. I mean, not box, but box. But anyway, so thank you for the question.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions from the committee? See none? Thank you, Mr. Love, for
Thank
your
you.
testimony.
Do the right thing.
Thank
Do
you.
the right thing.
We will begin over on this right side. No, hello. Yeah, this gentleman will go first. Please come. Right, let me start my gun, right? Okay.
Thank you.
Welcome, Government Committee.
Thank you. My name is John Mark Rule, JOHNMARKRULE. And I'm here for LB3. And I am just representing myself, one voter, one citizen in the state of Nebraska.
Proponent? Or-
I'm a proponent, yes.
Thank you.
I believe it's time to end this failed 33-year experiment. I think when it was originally came in, that was kind of how they went at it. The actual lady who, the senator, excuse me, I'm sorry, the senator who actually put it up said, you know, if we don't like it, we can change it back. And I believe that it is an experiment, and it's failed. It has divided and diluted Nebraska's electoral college vote. How it has divided Nebraska is it has pitted the majority of Nebraska voters against a minority Omaha-based group of contrary voters. Nebraska only has 5 electoral votes. When we divide those votes by even one, the ultimate outcome is a cancellation of one of the other votes, leaving Nebraska essentially with 3 electoral votes. Elections are always determined by the difference between the votes. Whoever has the most wins. That's why I'm saying that there would be a cancellation. I am certain this makes Nebraska's electoral votes less significant. Let's be honest. Continuing this split of our voice is solely to satisfy a minority group's desire to defy the unity of Nebraska's popular vote. It's time to correct the obvious partisan up yours to the majority of Nebraska voters.
Thank you for your testimony. We'll see if we have any questions from the committee here. We see none. Thank you, Mr. Rule.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Government Committee.
Hello. Good afternoon, Senators. My name is Gail Rule, spelled Gailrule, and I live in Omaha, and I'm here to support LB 3. I happen to be a very analytical person, and my support or opposition to any issue is always based on extensive research. The more I studied LB 115, the more opposed I was to the congressional district method. Senator, bad ideas are thrown around 7 days a week, and sometimes they become law. What's important is that mistakes are admitted and corrected, which is exactly what Nebraska did in both 1995 and 97 when our legislature overturned LB 115.
Excuse me, Ms. Rule.
Yeah.
If you could,
Yes.
people would like to hear your testimony
Oh, they
in the back
can?
of the room. It doesn't amplify, it records. So if you just speak up just a little bit
Oh.
more.
I've got a teacher's
More
voice,
volume.
so there we go. Which is exactly what Nebraska did in both 1995 and 97 when our legislature overturned LB 115. Unfortunately, we had a Democrat governor, Ben Nelson, who refused to sign the bill. And so our mistake continued. I could talk for hours on the origin and history of the Electoral College, presidential elections in Nebraska since 1868, and how LB 115 came to be, its intended purpose, and what it's actually done. And I can give the arguments for and against the congressional district method. But what I can promise you is that LB 115 never fulfilled any of its original intent and purpose. In fact, here is the legislative floor discussion from 1991, highlighted and noted. Okay? And therefore, objectively, it has been a complete failure. I'm going to focus on the 33 years and the 9 presidential elections since its passage and objectively see what this system has actually done. You're probably going to have to read it for yourself because I'm already yelling. But it has only split our electoral college vote 3 times, in 2008, 20, and 24. In all 3 cases, it wasn't CD2, and I know they like to say that out loud, but go back and look at the voting. It isn't all of CD2. It's that little tiny blue dot in Omaha, Nebraska only, period. The rest of CD2 voted the opposite direction. So I've got figures and facts for you here about the Electoral College vote. Our voting system never once made one hill of beans difference to the outcome of the general election nationwide. Not once. It's not even close, folks. But I think that one point that I want to make is, it's almost as though Nebraska is handing out participation trophies. When you can go into a state, have an election, and you lose as badly, percentage-wise, as some of these candidates have, and yet they're still being handed an electoral college vote, we've got a problem.
Thank you, Ms. Rule. Hold on just a moment. Let me see if there are any questions from the committee.
No.
I see none. Thank you very much for your testimony and taking the time. Welcome.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. My name is Michael Tiedemann. That's Michael Tiedeman, and I'm a proponent for LB3. Main points I want to make is money. Simply put, our state has been plagued by outside donation money in excess of $50 million every presidential cycle, and to a lesser amount during the other federal years. We have allowed Nebraska to be a political pawn, not by candidates, but by outside special interests who try to impact our elections and erode our values. Furthermore, this money is not an economic windfall for Nebraska, as most dollars are spent as political outreach through TV, radio, and mailers. Even Nebraska-based lobbyists should examine the offsetting dollars that come in because of the CD2 anomaly and question whether their Nebraska dollars from their Nebraska members are neutralized, if not overwhelmed, by the excessive non-Nebraska dollars. Representation. CD2 has and will go through a redistricting. In 2031, if winner take all has not been passed, I believe Douglas County and the surrounding 5 counties will be political pawns from national entities to affect the numbers. Washington County constituents have been redistricted into all 3 congressional districts over the last several decades, so their representation at the congressional level has been constantly changing. To say this is a dot, whatever color you want to say it is, does not reflect the constant redistricting that will impact Washington, Dodge, Saunders, Sarpy, Cass, and of course Douglas County. This district was a political experiment that did not make sense in the 1990s and does not make sense in 2025 or the future. Please vote to move LB3 forward to the floor debate so a more robust conversation can occur amongst the state senators. Like all bills, LB3 needs 25 senators to pass, and if those 25 are representative of the highest vote getting Republicans, they represent 59% of Nebraska voters. Please get this bill out of committee.
Thank you, Mr. Tiedemann. Check if there's any questions. Senator Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for being here, Mr. Tiedemann. Just to clarify, the thing that was circulated, it looked like what you were reading is a letter from Republican Party Chair Eric Underwood.
Yes.
So you're here representing the Republican Party?
Yes, he didn't get it in time, so I decided to include that in my public comment.
Oh, that's fine. I just want to ask, are you here representing the Republican Party, though?
Yes, I am here representing the Republican Party.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Any other questions? See none? Thank you, Mr. Tiedemann.
Thank you.
Hello, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Liz Abel, Lizabel. I am a strong proponent of winner take all, LB3. Here's my reasoning for why. First of all, I believe the system splinters our electorate. We are Nebraskans first, not Nebraskans by congressional district. I appreciated what Senator Lippincott said. Our votes should represent how and what our residents represent in total, not by a county here or there. Essentially, even though Douglas County thinks they're the big dog, we're the big dog, I live in Omaha, we're still only one county. And it should not have a larger impact on our electoral votes other than the county, than any other county in the state. This would be exactly opposite of what our forefathers envisioned. They knew that if this was set up this way, large population centers would dictate election outcomes and effectively neuter the rural areas throughout the U.S. We are one state, and we are diffusing our own electoral college votes by allowing Douglas County to split our state's 5 votes. By nature of this split today, we encourage out-of-state influence on our voters. During the last presidential election, there were upwards of $1.5 million or more coming into our state from places like New York, California, and Illinois. Do these states have the values of Nebraskans? I personally don't think so. The only reason they have a large interest is because they believe they can influence elections. In the last election, I was receiving postcards from Illinois over and over again asking me to vote for Dan Osborne and Joe Biden. That would never happen if we had a winner-take-all. I was totally irritated by receiving those cards. They all got trashed. And I asked myself, what do these Illinois people know about Nebraska? If we go back to winner-take-all, we will see a reduction, if not elimination, in out-of-state money, and return to Nebraskans having 100% influence over our elections, as it should be. Last, again, and this has been said before, I believe having a split electoral vote diminishes our overall state significance. And so, again, I am totally a proponent for winner-take-all. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions? Senator Hunt.
Thank you, Chairman Sanders. Thank you for being here today. Do you think that voters in other states ever get postcards from outside interests urging them to vote a certain way?
I don't know. I can't answer that because I'm not here. I'm representing Nebraska and live in Nebraska right now. And I've never had, I would say I've lived in Texas before, and I never got cards from anywhere else in the United States asking me to vote for other candidates.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? See none. Thank you for your testimony.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Doug Kagan, D-O-U-G-K-A-G-A-N, representing Nebraska Taxpayers for Freedom 4, LB3. From the long debates over our electoral college came a compromise based on the idea of electoral intermediaries. These intermediaries, however, not picked by Congress, were elected by the people. Instead, each state would appoint independent electors to cast the actual ballots for the presidency. These drafters of our Constitution assumed that electors would vote according to their individual discretion, not the dictates of a state or a national political party, because there were no political parties in 1787. The founders also assumed that most elections ultimately would become decided by neither the people nor the electors, but by the House of Representatives. The Constitution states nothing about how states should allot their electoral votes. As we know, over time and now, all but 2 states passed laws to give all their electoral votes to the candidate who wins the state popular vote, winner take all. The 1820 election is the last election in which state legislatures played a dominant role. By this point, political parties had become entrenched. Electors no longer could realistically claim to act independent of the major political parties. Only then did this system seem like a fundamental part of the American voting system. The shift to statewide winner-take-all was the product of the 2-party political pragmatism, as state party leaders wanted to maximize support for their preferred candidate. Once some states made this calculation, others had to follow to avoid hurting their opportunities in the electoral college. Winner-take-all soon became the most common system. This method to allocate electoral votes is essential for ensuring the maximization of partisan electoral influence. So in states like Nebraska or California, where there is a dominant party which can reliably count on winning 55 to 58% of the vote, that party would not want to change winner-take-all because it benefits in a partisan fashion from winner-take-all. So the main point is, however, retaining our split vote system would intensify gerrymandering at each census time and take up a lot of time of the state legislature. Jonathan Rodden, noted political science professor at Stanford U, said it turns states into battlegrounds, contributing to partisanship by pitting urban versus rural and creating antagonism, and lessened our clout in the electoral college. The split vote system deprives voters of the representation in the district with a preponderance of voters from the opposite political party. In conclusion, adopting winner-take-all will maximize Nebraska influence in the Electoral College as long as two major political parties continue to dominate our elections. Thank you.
Thank you. You're right on spot there. Red light just came on. Thank you for your testimony. I'll check to see if there are any questions from the committee. I see none. Thank you for your testimony. So we're over on this side now. It's all you. Oh my God.
Yes. Okay, so first of all, I'm nervous. It's my first time getting out of my little cave.
Just remember to say your name and then spell it.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me here. My name is Melina Arroyo, and it's spelled Melina-Arroyo. And I didn't write anything in paper. I wrote on my phone. I need to use my readers because I'm aging. I'm an opponent of both.
Okay.
I strongly oppose the proposed bill that seeks to change Nebraska's unique method of allocating presidential electoral votes. Nebraska stands apart from nearly every other state in how we allocate these votes, and that distinction offers several significant advantages that should not be overlooked. Our system, which splits electoral votes based on congressional district results, ensures that the voices of all Nebraskans are heard. Unlike most states that award all their electoral votes to the winner of the popular vote, our approach encourages presidential candidates to engage with us, knowing that our votes are genuinely up for grabs. This level of attention is something rarely seen in similar states. The fact that I live in Massachusetts, South Carolina, and Florida, and I prefer to live here for the past 14 years, says so. By splitting the electoral votes, we elevate the concerns of Nebraskans on the national stage. Candidates actively seek our votes, and in doing so, they address issues that might otherwise be overlooked. This means our voices, whether from rural or urban areas, are part of the conversation. Moreover, this system brings in valuable spending from media and campaign events that directly benefit our local economy. Whether it's through advertisements, rallies, or local engagements, this influx of attention helps strengthen our community. Importantly, the district-based system gives weight to minority voter voices in each congressional district, preventing the marginalization of voters who might not align with the majority in the state. Every Nebraskan, regardless of their political leanings, I'm an independent, deserves to feel that their vote counts and that their concerns are addressed. By maintaining this system, Nebraska demonstrates that there are more representative and inclusive ways to conduct presidential elections. Inclusive. It shows that we value diversity and fairness in how votes are cast and counted, ensuring that all voices are truly heard. Changing this approach will not only diminish our influence, but also undermine the values that make Nebraska unique. The winner-takes-all bill could definitely have serious implications for representation. Thank you.
Well done. I'm going to check to see if there are any questions from the committee. I see none. Thank you for your testimony. Hope to see you back.
I'm in opposition. Ron Cunningham, RONCUNNINGHAM, Chairman Sanders and fellow committee members. I represent myself. I'm a longtime Republican who votes for issues based on what's good for our country, what's good for our state, and certainly not what's good for the party. In 2015, I became an independent. I assume that from hearing testimony that most Nebraskans don't realize that as an individual, 80% of the votes in the United States don't count, don't matter. Has no effect on who you will elect as your president. Republicans continue to promote unity and fairness, yet they want to take away a vote. In the most recent presidential election, both parties campaigned for that possible tie-breaking electoral vote. We were no longer a flyover state. Voters in each of our legislative districts have, although it's limited, a political voice. Republican senators and our governor shouldn't kowtow to Charlie Kirk over doing what they know is right for all Nebraskans. This bill is not about unity nor principles, and certainly not ethics. It's about money, power, and greed. I fear this bill will pass based on the makeup of our supposedly nonpartisan legislature, as it's a continuation of the far-right onslaught to desecrate the rights of voters. Let's be brutally honest. If LB 3 passes, there's absolutely no reason for a non-Republican voter to vote in a presidential election, probably for decades. It will be one of the great thefts in Nebraska political history. Every voter in a congressional district who votes should be told if this passes, hey, the Republicans may change your vote. The Nebraska legislature will essentially be legislating voter fraud. That should be unacceptable to all parties. Surely there's Republican senators that will say no. If the current disregard for nonpartisanship continues in this body, in time, perhaps only Republican voters will even be able to express their opinions in the second house. Instead of LB 3 or the CA, why don't our governor and our legislature commit to joining the National Popular Pact? As all Nebraskans would say, it makes common sense. If all 50 governors are selected by popular vote, why not our president? Majority governs. It would then be one person and one vote. Your vote would have equal value to a voter in Florida, in Michigan, or California. Imagine a national presidential election and it's tied and you've got the last vote. It can't get any better than that. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your testimony. Sir, Mr. Cunningham, are you in opposition of LB 3
Yes.
and LR
Yes.
724? Okay, for the record. Thank you very much. Hold on. We may
Okay.
have some questions from the committee. Are there any questions? See none. Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
testimony. We're over here. Welcome.
My name's Beverly Hornig, B-E-V-E-R-L-Y, Hornig, H-O-R-N-I-G. I am an opponent of LB3 and LR24CA. Voter representation where a majority by each congressional district is the fairest system. I'm old enough to remember our own Republicans, Roman Ruska and Carl Curtis, were two of the U.S. senators who pushed for the split vote system at a national level in 1969. The Republican Party is not the same today. At the time, a proposed constitutional amendment to make this a national practice passed in the Senate but failed in the House. In the current divisive political climate, trying to eliminate this system in Nebraska now doesn't promote unity or healing, which our nation desperately needs. I had been a lifelong Republican, believing in less government control, until the divisiveness became toxic about 8 years ago. And I think you all know what happened 8 years ago that influenced me. Allowing more true citizen representation at all levels of government is healthy and sustaining for preserving our core democratic values. Our country has been slow to allow all citizens the right to vote, considering the belated amendments to allow blacks and then women the right to vote. Continuing to silence the voices of the underserved only fuels the dissatisfaction and political discourse we experience. We must do better to allow equality in representation at all levels and to address the needs of all. Let every vote count. Promote cooperation. Let every vote count. Promote cooperation. Let every vote count. Promote cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Hold on just a moment. Let's see if there are any questions from the committee. See none. Thank you very much for your testimony. Welcome.
Hello, thank you. I am Dr. Jim Martin, J-I-M-M-E-R-T-I-N. I represent myself today. First, thank you, Senators, for your service to the people of Nebraska, and I appreciate this opportunity. I'm here to express my opposition to both pieces of legislation. I've researched elections and electoral systems for the last 25 years in our country and abroad. While I have many criticisms of winner-take-all, I'll confine my remarks to its effect on voter turnout. Winner-take-all tends to depress voter turnout. It does so by creating the perception among many people that voting doesn't matter and the outcome is all but predetermined. This is especially true in a state like Nebraska, where registered Republicans outnumber Democrats by a large amount. Prior to the adoption of our current system for distributing electoral votes, voter turnout was, on average, about 4% lower. That's about 50,000 Nebraskans every 4 years that decided it wasn't worth their time to vote in a presidential election under winner-take-all. Under our current system, voter turnout in presidential years has been higher than it was prior to 1992 in every single presidential election and many by-elections too. Additionally, to address one of the talking points of those who support winner-take-all, both rural counties and those more populous counties have enjoyed higher voter turnout over the decades since our current system became law. In fact, voter turnout in rural counties has often been even higher than that in more populous counties. To conclude, our current system creates voter interest, enthusiasm, and engagement with the politics of both parties and for independents. Correspondingly, it has consistently increased voter turnout across all of our diverse counties for the last 3 decades. More voters, more participation are always good for democracy. To that end, I ask you to drop this legislation from consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your testimony, Dr. Martin. Let me see if there are any questions from the committee. See none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Maureen Hutfless. It's M-A-U-R-E-E-N.
Margaret, do you have your green sheets?
Oh, yes, I apologize.
Sorry.
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Last name is H-U-T as in Tom, F as in Frank, L-E, S as in Sam, S as in Sam. Speaking in opposition to both LB3 and LR24CA. A little bit of background on me, just for context. I've been registered as nonpartisan for many years, currently leaning Democratic, but I was a registered Republican for 30 years before that. I would like any Republican senators who support winner-take-all to ask themselves this question, and please answer honestly. If Nebraska were a heavily Democratic state, except that one area sometimes voted Republican, would I still say that winner-take-all is the way to go? Or would I instead argue that we must save the red dot because it would be wrong to disenfranchise thousands of Republican voters? If that is the viewpoint that you would take, then it is equally wrong to disenfranchise thousands of Democratic voters. There are simple, timeless principles in play here. I'm sure that most of us were taught as little children that fairness is a virtue which we should all strive to practice. I would hope that as adults and elected officials, Nebraska senators have not abandoned that principle. For senators who are Christians, you can show that you really mean it when you espouse the golden rule. So if you would not want a Democratic majority to kick Republican voters to the curb, then please don't kick Democratic voters to the curb. Please don't let political tribalism override higher principles. Ultimately, the question is this: Will senators uphold Nebraska's exemplary electoral vote system, or will you decide that fairness is not a Nebraska value? Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. And again, was it Margaret?
Maureen.
Maureen. Thank you very much for your testimony. Let's check to see if there are any questions from the committee. See none. Thank you very much. We're going to now, hold on, Mark. See if Margie has. We're going to, we have a wheelchair here. Hold on. You have enough room there, sir? Thank you.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. My name is Warren, W-A-R-R-E-N, Phelps, P-H-E-L-P-S. I live on a farm near Lorenzo, Nebraska. How many people know where that is? Not many. South of Sydney, about 12 miles way out in west in Cheyenne County. I'm chairman of the Republican Party in Cheyenne County. I'm a card-carrying member of the RNC. Lifelong Republican. I am 100% opposed to Nebraska being a winner-take-all state. Western Nebraska, the farther west you go in Nebraska, the more Republican it gets. I brought some numbers with me. There's 262,000 Republicans in the 3rd Congressional District, only 74,000 Democrats. We're the deep red sea. Everyone I've talked to in Cheyenne County, at our local county meetings, going to grocery stores, talking to people on the streets, nobody wants to be winner take all in Cheyenne County that I've talked to. As long as the 3rd District of Nebraska has that electoral vote, we have a chip in the game. I'm sure the Democrats in Omaha feel the same way. If the Republican candidate for president cannot convince 15 or 16,000 more voters in Omaha to vote for them, they don't deserve that electoral vote. If every state had this system of letting each congressional district cast their own electoral vote, it produces competition. Competition makes everybody better. It forces candidates to come up with good ideas, ideas that benefit everyone, ideas that help the whole country. I had a lot to say and I can't think of it right now, but anyway, I'm opposed to the LB3 and LR24CA. I would prefer a constitutional amendment that keeps the per district electoral vote in place. What's going to happen is Lincoln and Omaha is going to grow faster in the next 10, 20 years as rural Nebraska. There's going to be a lot more Democratic voters in this state at one time. I don't want to be drowned out by Democratic votes in the 3rd district. I want to keep our electoral vote in the 3rd district. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much, and thank you for driving all the way out.
350 miles.
Hold on, let's check if there are any questions from the committee. Senator Hunt.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Can you tell me your name again? I know I said it. It's good for the
Warren,
record.
W-A-R-R-E-N, Phelps, P-H-E-L-P-S.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Phelps. Appreciate it. So do we start now? And we're going to start back on this side again. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair Sanders and this committee. I appreciate the time. My name is Jean Riegel, Jeannereigle. I am an ag producer from a very small community of 2,500. Oh, and I'm a proponent.
For LB3 or both?
LB3.
Okay.
LB3, yes. And I do not really feel strongly that either way is going to really affect the outcome of a presidential election. What I do feel strongly about is the amount of money, and as you accurately depicted, power that is thrown into these presidential races, and I think it trickles down to the Senate races and the city council races, and it comes down to more and more power and money being concentrated in 1/3 of the state, and the rural areas of the state are just not represented like I feel they should. And I've seen that firsthand in our small town. We have dwindling population because more and more population are going to the urban areas because that's where the money is concentrated, that's where the resources are, and the more money, more resources, the more you can grow. And I see the opposite in small communities. They're hurting, they're dwindling, and I see it on the Senate. There's very few rural senators left, and any that are involved in agriculture, which is our largest industry, and that concerns me. And so I would really like to see small rural communities, 2/3 of the state, retain as much voice as 1/3 of the state. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for your testimony. See if there are any questions. See none. Thanks, Ms. Regal. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Senator Reid, senators and members of the committee. My name is Dr. Linda Vermooten, Linda-Vermooten. Listened to a lot of comments here today and thought, well, we need to go back and look at what was the intent of our founding fathers. Why did they not go with one man, one vote? Because in their wisdom, they had researched all other republics, all other constitutions that had come into play before we began this experiment of being a constitutional republic, not a democracy. Because they realized as the population would grow, if we look at the layout of our country now, if we go to one man, one vote, kiss Nebraska goodbye, your vote won't matter. New York City, LA, and San Fran would vote, and the rest of us would have no say. So in their wisdom, they came up with a plan of having an electoral college to offset that, to look at how the people vote in the state is important. This winner take all, and I'm a proponent on both, sorry I didn't state that at the beginning. As has been stated before, on 2 separate occasions, when we started this little experiment here in Nebraska, we always said, we can change it. Interestingly enough, the people spoke through their legislators and through the hearings. We do not want this experiment anymore. One individual in our state, one individual, overrode our legislator and vetoed what you said as our representatives in our state to go back where we were before, which was winner take all, to unite our voice. After all, we only have 5 votes in Nebraska. To unify, it would be better. To quote Mr. Evnan, our state secretary, was speaking at an event recently. He said, how come does a few thousand in our state have more power than the rest? Because they're the only ones who can break off an electoral vote from the rest. Arguments have been, it is advantageous for us to have candidates come to our great state. Well, if my recollection serves me well, in 2024, we neither saw either candidate come to our state. So that argument just falls flat. That is not the truth. And the money coming in was really to a political end, and as has been spoken, was more in ads than into our local economy to help us. I believe we need to return to winner take all and allow unification of all of our electoral votes to go according to how the majority of the people in our state vote. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Dr. Brennan. Let me check if there are any questions from the community. I see none. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you very much.
Hello, Senators. I'm here to testify on behalf of both bills from a neutral perspective. I'm Heather Nelson. I'm the founder. My name is HeatherNelson. I'm the founder and CEO of Ideologics Insights. We're a new nonpartisan data analytics laboratory located in Omaha, Nebraska. We power pollthevote.com. We facilitate civic and community engagement. The platform connects us as citizens to you, our elected officials, candidates for office, and our community leaders. The laboratory measures public sentiment in real time from verified participants. The lab conducted a focus group on these legislative proposals over a period of 4 days, concluding just Tuesday. Every Nebraskan age 15 plus can participate in our system. We had participants from all 3 congressional districts and 42 of the 49 state senator districts. 30% were from Omaha and Lincoln. The overall results when we asked them whether or not they wanted us to keep the same electoral college vote or to change was as follows. 91.83% said they want to keep the electoral college voting system the same. 8.1% said they wanted to change to a winner-take-all. Here's some interesting findings as we looked at the data. Of you, the 8 senators sitting here in front of me today, 7 had constituents that participated in our system. You represented a total of 23.56% of the participation, and 98% of your constituents voted that they would like to not have a change. They do not want to see a winner-take-all system. 85% of the total participants are registered as either Democrat or Independent, of which 99% voted to keep it the same. 12% of the total participants were registered as Republicans, of which almost half still stated that they wanted the system to stay the same. Of the 5% registered Republicans that stated that they want to keep the system the same, the majority live in either District 4, Von Gillern, or District 31, Koth, and both of these senators are registered Republicans, yet have the largest representation in our focus group that said that they want to keep the system the same. In October of 2024, when our company first came out and launched publicly, we did a similar focus group back then, of which 50% of our participants were registered Republicans, and 60% of those, again, said they would like the system to stay the same.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions from the council, from the committee? See none? Sorry, we're going to try and stay.
No, that's why I stopped at the red light. You have the rest of my written report.
Yes, we do. I appreciate all the information. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chairman Sanders and members of this committee. My name is Ann Daly, ANNEDALY. Okay, looking back at LB 115 passed in 1992, there were numerous concepts for adopting the Electoral College Congressional District vote system in Nebraska. It was not a new idea. In fact, it was used by many states at the beginning of our country's history. But even before Nebraska became a state in 1867, The majority of states were using the winner-takes-all system. And by 1872, every state in the nation was using winner-takes-all to provide its electoral votes. Nebraska could be a leader. Obviously, it has been 33 years since Nebraska instituted the split vote system. And how many states have followed since then? None. To even suggest California, New York, or Illinois would even consider this system is ridiculous. From 1868 to 2024, Nebraska has voted for the presidential winner 25 times and the loser of the race 15 times. Nebraska's historical electoral college vote totals have changed over time, from 3 votes to 5 votes to 8 votes to 7 votes to 6 votes, and since 1964 to the present, 5 votes. Being from rural Nebraska, I'm from Hamilton County, where we have 1 traffic light. We are already underrepresented in our unicameral system that doesn't include a state senate where we could be equally represented. Adopting LB3 would at least allow those of us in the rural areas to be a part of a unified Nebraska voice on presidential elections.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Just to verify, you are testifying on LB3.
Right.
As a
Proponent, yes.
Thank you very much. Hold on. Are there any questions? See none. Thank you, Ms. Davis.
Thank you.
See, where are we? Here we go. Welcome.
Hello. I am an opponent of both LB3 and LR 24CA. Thank you. And I want to say from the front that part of my statements today are based on some of the offensive language that was used this morning in relation to the plane disaster in Washington.
Can I have you make sure you state your name?
Yes, I'm sorry. My name is Gretchen Uri. My first name is spelled Gretchen. Last name Uri, E-U-R-E.
Thank you.
Our state has shown the nation a little blue dot in the middle of the country, representing all the voices in the region. But there are some Republicans that are trying to snuff out the diversity of people, especially here in Nebraska. A majority of voters have true representation, but some people with supremacy insecurity would want those voices silenced. It is the fragility of Republicans who are doomed to follow the criminals and the rapists and the insurrectionists that dominate their policies and objectives. But the people who are not decadent or deplorable want to preserve their place on the map when it represents the moral decency of Nebraska occupants. So, if you want to decide to brand the state along the lines of corruption promoted to incompetency, we will succumb to the political gratification of a few. It is not okay to hide the true agenda of some Republicans seeking personal or political favoritism from the Oval Office. When it's done at the sacrifice of the good people of Nebraska, partisan politics corrodes our patriotism and disenfranchises the efforts of well-meaning, civic-minded residents. You pretend you are unicameral, but we're not fooled. Representation should be split out among all people, not just a few.
Well done. Thank you very much for your testimony. Hold on, let's check to see if there are any questions from the committee members. See none, thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Darryl, D-A-R-R-Y-L. My last name is Uri. That was my wife, E-U-R-E. So you're getting a double dose of us. I'm just speaking off the cuff. And my issue is, what is this legislature afraid of? I'm in opposition to both of those bills. I'm in opposition because we have got to be a true democracy. I've been hearing so much today about this country not being a democracy, but being a republic. My goodness, all through grade school, all through junior high, all through high school, all through college, we talked about this country being a democracy. And now we're talking about it's no longer a democracy, so therefore we don't have to all vote together and everybody's vote don't count. The problem we've been having throughout our community is getting people to vote. And when you begin to take away that vote from people by gerrymandering, by voter IDs laws, by changing where people vote at, all of these type of things stop people from voting. And now you want to take away our little blue dot in the middle of Nebraska, in the middle of the country, because some people are saying, well, we want everybody to vote alike. That's not democracy. You have to have some division. You have to have some opposition. Don't be afraid. Do not be afraid because somebody vote differently than what you would. We have got to be a country that, well, I didn't win this time. My candidate, Kamala Harris, did not win. Okay, we got Donald Trump in office. Okay, but that's what democracy is all about. But if you're going to stand back and say, oh no, we want everybody to vote like this, and nobody else is in opposition of us, and you can't vote differently, that is not a democracy. That is a totalitarian country. And we are built on a democracy where we do have divisions. We do have oppositions. But we come together as one country, one vote, and we represent the very best of ourselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Uri, for your testimony. Let's see if there are any questions. See none?
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time.
I need a booster chair.
I understand that. I do too. Yeah, welcome.
Madam Chair and committee members, I'm Peg O'Day Lippert, Lippert, Peg is the first name. I'm here to testify in opposition to LB3, which to the best of my recollection, I've testified against each time a similar bill has come before this similar committee, and to speak to LR 24C8. On December 17th, I cast the Congressional District 2 vote at the Nebraska Electoral College. My testimony today is an adaptation of the comments I addressed to the governor on that occasion, and which was published in the Omaha World Herald 2 days later. The split electoral vote is a priority of the governor and has been introduced into this legislature by Senator Lippincott. As I said to the governor that day, and I say to you today, I'm willing to assume that you believe in democracy or in the republic, whichever you choose to call us. and our democratic way of life. If that is so, it defies reason to not continue the current system, which more closely represents one person, one vote. I have lived and voted in Nebraska for 53 years, and until the enactment of the split electoral vote, mine didn't count as a Democrat in an otherwise Republican state. Not only is it a fairer way to let the voices of the people be heard, it puts Nebraska on the map in the national news and brings otherwise absent campaigners to this state, particularly at this time in Congressional District 2. Some 25 paid staffers, 3 campaign offices, news media personnel, and countless blue dots contributed significant dollars to the state's economy. Because of our split electoral vote, Nebraska is no longer a flyover state during presidential election season. Do you think Nebraska would be in the national news even mentioned, if not for the potential split vote? You and I both know the answer is no. Although December 17th was not the celebratory event I had hoped for, I was proud Nebraskan to cast the C2 vote that day for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. It was a vote for the continuation of our democratic way of life. Regarding Legislative Resolution 24CA, this resolution must be withdrawn, as it is nothing more than an end run to achieve winner-take-all. I propose that Senator Dorn or another senator introduce a resolution in the next session enacting Nebraska to join the National Popular Vote Interstate Pact, and then wait until such time as a sufficient number of states have joined to equal the current 270 electoral votes necessary to elect the president. This will trigger the beginning of the end of the Electoral College and a move to the national popular vote, the apt time then for such a resolution to be proposed. 17 states and the District of Columbia have already joined the pact. I'm asking to vote no on LD3 and to withdraw the LB and to withdraw LR 24CA. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lippert. There's also, I believe, a testimony from George Lippert.
Yes, I wrote a note there that he was not able to come and was unable to follow whatever directions there were about submitting, so I brought that on his behest.
Perfect. Appreciate your testimony. Thanks for coming down. Let me check to see if there are any questions. See none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Good morning.
Yeah, it's 3:30 p.m.
Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Harold Blevins, Harold, Blevins, Blevins. I am against, I do not want this bill. I'm an opponent, I guess. The reason, we have a president now who, prior to him becoming president, like 3 or 4 days prior to that, he invited all the Republican governors to his little home in Mar-a-Lago and said, do it my way. And this is one of the little bills that came up to do it his way. I don't like it. It is not democratic. We have a fabulous system in Nebraska and in Maine. Now, people keep talking about the blue dot. I'm sorry, but my friends in Lincoln, my friends in Syracuse, my friends in other cities voted Democrat. It's not just a blue dot. I'm just here to say, I think it's ridiculous to change it. It doesn't cost the state any more money to leave it in than to change it out. You're wasting precious time that you could be addressing bigger issues. That's all I have to say.
Appreciate your testimony. Duly noted. Thank you very much for coming out. Appreciate it.
Good afternoon. My name is Peggy Blevins. That was my husband. I'm opposed to LB 3. I am from Omaha, and I don't have a lot of facts and figures that I'm going to quote today. I could have done that, but mine comes down to a common sense approach of why I'm opposed to this. I am from a small rural community in Nebraska, and after high school graduation, I went to college, and then from there moved to several different cities. But I'm from a small rural community in Nebraska originally, and the election days was a very important day in rural communities. People would go to the local gym, you know, where you would see your family coming in to vote. And sometimes the family didn't come in to vote, or friends, and I would say, why didn't you come in to vote? And under the system that was there at that time, it was a system where one vote takes it all. And they would say, my vote doesn't count. Omaha and Lincoln are going to rural. What happens in Nebraska? And at the time I thought, this is really sad that you really think that your vote is not going to count. So to do away with this bill, or to do away with what this system that we have in effect right now, I think it's going to disenfranchise many of rural Nebraskans, and they're going to feel like their vote is no longer important, and it's going to prevent them from going to the polls. So I'm opposed to this change, and that's where I stand.
Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
I'll check to see if there are any questions. I see none. Thank you, Ms. Levis, for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm speaking in opposition, LB3 and LR24CA. My name is Mark Metcalf. That's MARKMETCALF. I happen to be the chair of the Fillmore County Democrats, a determined group of rural Nebraskans who want legislation that is rational, fair, and beneficial. Senators, I expect today that you'll hear a lot about the political, social, and economic benefits of our current method of allocating electoral votes. Those benefits are significant and undeniable. The Republican Party is pushing these winner-take-all proposals, but the party should realize that it benefits from our current system too, because the party has to step its game up in order to compete in our second district. Today, the party is incentivized to get up off the culture war couch and get in some steps in the direction of substantive issues and political moderation. Are Nebraska Republicans truly afraid of fair competition? Surely not. Since this split vote went into effect, I believe there have been 9 presidential elections, and Republicans in the second district are 6-3. You were both eligible by 2016. Are Nebraska Republicans tired of having their presidential nominee show up in Nebraska? Of course not, and they have shown up here. The nation is paying attention to Nebraska, and Nebraskans are paying attention to politics. Nebraskans in the most populous area of the state actually have hope that their votes for president will matter, and that's a good thing. Finally, the way things are going now, there will be some serious political backlash against the current occupant of the White House and his party. The day may be coming when the Republican Party will treasure its singular red patch in the 3rd District of Nebraska. Let us avoid fixing something that is obviously not broken. Let us drop LB3 and LR24CA. I'll be happy to take any questions for those who want to draw out the session.
Thank you, Mr. Metcalf. Just check to see if there are any questions. I see none. Thank you very much. Now, nobody move. I think we're going to take a 5-minute break. It will allow you to move forward, and we can fill in those that are out in the hall. And so we're going to take a quick 5-minute break up here. Please do so, but we'll move everybody up. The red coats will help guide you. couple hours. I think some of you are still from the first half. So welcome back. I just want to remind how we're going to move through this process. We're going to start on this end for the next testifier. And wait a minute, I'm sorry, down on this end here and down, and then we'll go back to this end and down. When you finish with your testimony, if you will please exit the room, and we'll make more for more. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Government Committee.
Thank you, Chairman Sanders. Good to see you again, and members of the committee. My name is Josephine Litwinowitz, JOSEPHINELITWINOWICZ. And as important as this is, every time I come up, we better watch President Trump. It's bad. He's taking over forms of government. He's persecuting people. He's setting a standard. He's weakening our institutions. And I can't, it's so important that you Republicans here, you better have an open letter ready. You better have an open letter ready for when it comes, the biggest thing. Okay, so first of all, on this this nonsense of unifying all of the, I also wanted to say, it's tough. You see how tough it is? I talked and I got some promises on this as far as, being able to speak properly. We can go into that later too, but, there was arguments made that, unifying the whole state and, submitting all the electors at once. But I think it's, who likes small government? Or what about local, where we all get to decide? Why can't, well, we know why we can't. Why we have to, get this forced. I don't know if you're paying attention, but all of this, when we clearly want, in certain locations, as we proved, District 2, that we are who we wanted for president in that district. Now let's look at locally, we could split it up even more, I'd say. But now we'd get a better representation of the electors that go vote on the presidency, and of course, this electoral college is nonsense, right? Because it was meant for totally different purposes, and it's just sad that it exists at all. Because then, yeah, in terms of morality, we are the flyover states. You get 2 senators, where Los Angeles is the highest population. 8th highest population in the country, and we should have a bunch of senators from there. But we can't, right? Because you just want to keep, nobody wants it fair. So we're just going to keep that as long as we can, huh? 2 senators for California, no matter what their politics. So we're just going to make sure, that the people, the smaller population that agrees with some of these things, we're going to make sure they win, right? Just like the governor appointing governors that he will kowtow. Now, realize that this is how autocracies form in part. In the name of religion, we're going to, okay. I didn't get to finish, but we got to move on.
Yep.
Thanks a lot.
Josephine, I appreciate your testimony.
Thank you. I will always pay attention to the rules. Have a great day.
Thank you, you too.
I was about halfway done.
You just good enough.
Take care.
Okay, starting on my right.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Good afternoon. Hi. I'm Sherry St. Clair, SHERI-STCLAIR. I'm here this afternoon testifying on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Nebraska in opposition to both LB3 and LR24CA. The League believes that the direct popular vote method for election of the president and vice president is essential to representative government. As such, we support abolishment of the Electoral College. Absent that, we reiterate our dedication to promoting an open government system that is representative, accountable, and responsive, including voting methods that encourage voter participation and voter engagement, particularly of those with minority opinions, including underrepresented communities. Nebraska's electoral college split recognizes that our congressional districts differ in not only partisan makeup, but also racial, ethnic, socioeconomic, and other demographic compositions. There has been a consistent recognition that the district method better balances local representation with national unity, offering a middle ground between the winner-take-all and the direct popular vote systems. Speaking, historically, nationally, there have been a lot of bills introduced over the year proposing constitutional amendments that would replace the Electoral College with either the district method or direct popular election of the president and vice president. I'm not going to repeat all those ones that are listed in the written statement, but do note that replacement of the Electoral College was supported by our forefather James Madison, and President Andrew Jackson was the first to call for outright abolition of the Electoral College in favor of direct popular vote. In this century, there have been a lot of proposals submitted in favor of direct popular or changing the Electoral College, including one in 1934 by Nebraska's Senator George Norris. And interestingly, Nebraska Senators Roman Ruska and Carl Curtis signed on as co-sponsors of the 1969 constitutional amendment, which would have adopted a split system. The district method is a practical and principled system rooted in our ideals of fairness and local control. Nebraska thus honors a legacy championed by its political leaders who understood the importance of giving all voters a voice. Repeated attempts since its adoption in Nebraska, most recently in 2023, disregards this history in an attempt to achieve partisan advantage rather than achieving more representative elections. When compared to the winner-take-all systems, Nebraska's current system, used since 1992, has better reflected the will of our people and should continue to be used to do so. Neither of these bills, LB3 or 24CA, should be advanced from this committee. Thank you.
Well done. Thank you, Ms. St. Clair. Let me check there to see if there was any questions for you. See none. Thank you for your testimony and your patience.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Chairman Sanders and members of the Government, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee. My name is Heidi Ewing, H-E-I-D-I-U-H-I-N-G. I'm Public Policy Director for Civic Nebraska, speaking in opposition to both LB3 and LR24CA. Civic Nebraska is a nonpartisan, pro-voter organization and has long been in favor of the split electoral vote because it serves Nebraskans well, ensuring a more localized representation of voters' intent. It bolsters our state's relevancy in federal elections, generating more attention from national candidates and boosting voter turnout. All these are good things. We've testified to this effect before, but something notable has happened on this issue that I want to recognize, particularly for the senators new to this committee. This winner-take-all bill was heard in this room as recently as 2023. The hearing was comparatively short and sweet. There were 5 proponents, 7 opponents. It didn't make it out of committee. No senator prioritized it. And now, the governor has named it a top priority for the state. We have an uncomfortably packed hearing room, an overflow room, and a very long night for all of you. What has changed to create this interest? The bill that gave us the split electoral vote in 1991 had 5 co-sponsors, 2 Republicans, 3 Democrats. It passed with the support of 5 Republicans in the body. What's different today is that last April, with only hours left of the legislative session, someone from outside Nebraska suddenly made a demand of this body that would best serve a particular candidate in a tweet. I encourage you to prioritize issues that are homegrown priorities for Nebraskans, to resist partisan pressure when it's not in the best interest of Nebraskans. Prioritize process over partisan outcomes. You've heard calls today to conform to how other states tally these votes. They're right, it would be more consistent. But this very institution is evidence of Nebraska's tradition of doing things differently. Those who have come before us have customized a government and this unique electoral system designed solely to better represent us. Nebraska and Maine got it right. It's okay to be better than the rest. Thanks.
Thank you very much for your testimony. To confirm, you are opposing LB3 and LR?
That's right.
24C. Thank you very much. Let me check to see if there are any questions. Senator Hunt.
Thank you, Chairwoman Sanders. Thank you, Ms. Ewing, for being here. First, could we get a copy of your testimony when you get a chance? Okay, and then second, in the beginning of your testimony, you talked about how our split electoral vote brings interest from candidates to Nebraska, it brings economic opportunities for Nebraskans, increases turnout. You mentioned these things. Senator Lippincott, in his open, he said the opposite of all that. He said it doesn't help turnout, it doesn't bring money in, and he did not have any citations for that view, but do you have any that you can share with us later?
Yeah, I'll pull together some information that bolsters those arguments and provide some context for those statements.
Thank you.
I think a lot of it is contextual that we kind of observe and kind of can assume based on the makeup of Nebraska, our size, and its relevancy to the larger scope nationally, how different it would be if we did not have this split vote. But I'll find some data for you to back that up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hunt. Are there any other questions? Senator Whitcomb.
Thank you for being here. Just a note to follow on Senator Hunt. I think if you're gathering the data, I understand the vice president or president might not make it here, but I think it would be important to note or maybe research if any of the people that work for them or represent them have made the trip. I think that would be telling also, please.
Good point, Senator. Thank you. I
you.
will do that.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you for
Thanks so much.
your testimony this morning. Welcome.
Chairwoman Sanders, members of the Government, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee, my name is Gavin Geis, that is spelled G-A-V-I-N-G-E-I-S, and I'm the Executive Director for Common Cause Nebraska. Common Cause Nebraska is a grassroots organization with a 40-year history of advocating for accessible and accountable government that serves us all. Today, Common Cause Nebraska opposes LB3 and LR24CA because we believe doing away with our split electoral college vote would be a loss for every Nebraskan. Much has been made of how moving to a winner-take-all system would better serve Nebraska's interests. In truth, our current model not only reveals a more accurate picture of how Nebraska is voting, but it gives us all greater influence and power in presidential elections. For decades, presidential campaigns have mostly been the territory of battleground states. Last year, 94% of campaign events were held in just 7 swing states. 32 states did not receive any visits from candidates, a class that includes our neighbors in Missouri, South Dakota, Kansas, and Wyoming. Sadly, most states have been deemed irrelevant. Yet despite those odds, Nebraska was among the handful of non-swing states that received attention from both campaigns last year. Because we've bucked the norm, candidates are forced to pay attention to us. That attention means that Nebraskans get a better chance to judge the candidates and that they must consider our interests when pitching themselves. In short, it gives us better insight and leverage in presidential politics than most states. Another way to measure how our system gives Nebraskans an advantage is by considering how much campaigns spend on advertising to us. Based on a review of spending during the 2020 election, just over $6.5 million was spent on advertising by presidential campaigns and their supporters in Nebraska. While the totals for 2024 aren't available yet, we can be sure that spending has only increased to gain our votes. To be clear, Common Cause is no fan of the climbing costs of our elections, but we recognize that spending is an indicator of how candidates are looking at states. And the fact that they're willing to spend millions on media here is a clear signal that our votes matter. Yet another way to understand the influence this system has given Nebraskans is by examining the pressure that was put on this legislature last year to change the system. When it looked like Nebraska could hold the keys to electoral victory, national interests moved in to persuade senators to do away with the split vote before the November elections. Make no mistake, in that scenario, it was Nebraska who held the power. If instead we move to a winner-take-all system, you can be sure that presidential candidates won't be calling you asking for a favor. Instead, they'll forget all about us and will have given up the leverage we now hold. Rather, I'd encourage you to be proud of the model and the strength it gives us. At a time when people are feeling more helpless than ever to impact our national politics, we maintain a system that prioritizes the power of Nebraska's voters. As such, we urge you to reject LB3 and LR 24CA. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Geis. Are there any questions from the committee? See none? Thank you very much for your testimony and your patience. Okay, we're moving over here. Welcome. Thank you.
Hello, Senators. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. My name is Paula Ray. I'm a retired clinical psychologist. I live in Lincoln, Nebraska. My name is Paulayray, and I am here to speak in opposition to both bills. And my comments will be brief. You know, I've heard comments today around the importance of money and candidates, and what I want to speak to is personal pride. As a Nebraskan, as a grandparent, I value the sense that I live in a community where my grandson can bring friends that speak the logos of Republicans and those that speak the logos of Democrats, and they can have a rational discussion with the adults in our family that helps them think about issues, helps them be able to think abstractly about very complex concepts that you're all dealing with, that when it comes down to the individual of one, doesn't mean that much. And because of that, because these issues are so big, when it comes to an individual, they can very quickly lose a sense of competency. And I want my grandchildren, as Nebraskans, to feel proud that they have the ability to receive not only a good education in the educational system, but in their environment. And their environment is based on the sense of pride. They might not have a vote that counts, but they have a voice. And that voice is important, so I speak for that voice.
Thank you very much for your testimony. To confirm, opposing LB3 and LR
Yes.
24CA?
Correct.
Okay, and let me check to see if there are any questions from the committee. See none. Thank you very much for your time and patience.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Hi there. I'm in opposition to both pieces of legislation.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jason Brown, Jasonbrown. I'm a proud, lifelong Nebraskan. I grew up in southwest Nebraska in the tiny village of Hindley, population 22. Now I live in Omaha, our largest community. In between the two, I lived right here in Lincoln for almost 25 years. So I'm proud to have lived, I guess you could call it the full Nebraska experience, having resided in all three of our awesome and very unique congressional districts. So last fall, my wife and I created the very first hand-painted blue dot yard sign. It grew from the one we placed in our yard to over 15,000 by Election Day. To be clear, we didn't do anything all that special. We just painted a dot on a sign. But we do feel honored to have started a positive movement and feel proud that more than anything, it became an education movement about how we do it better in Nebraska. Early on, we were warned to expect extreme negative pushback. We were even warned to expect threats of violence over a simple blue and white sign. But this is Nebraska. By and large, the negativity was pushed to the sides. We are not a state of extremists on either side. Being reasonable is in our DNA. Over and over, we met Republicans in favor of keeping our system. Why? They all said it just makes sense because it's good for Nebraska. Our current system very much honors the dominance of red in Nebraska, but Nebraskans have shown a hint of blue in just 3 elections. Those blue Nebraskans are your friends, they are your family, and they are your neighbors. So let's continue to show the world that yes, we are a state with a wide swath of red And yes, on occasion, we are a state with a little streak of blue. Since adopting our allocation system in 1992, we have awarded 42 votes to Republican presidential candidates and just 3 to Democrats. So I hope we can agree that with a score of 42-3, our current system very much honors the dominance of red Nebraska, and it honors rural Nebraska. A common defense of winner takes all argues that we should just do it like the other states, but to me, I just don't believe that's a good argument. Should we be swayed to change just because that's what everyone else is doing? Consider this, and you've heard it today. Aren't we all proud to be the only state with a unicameral? It is unique and it is better. I imagine we would shut down any arguments to eliminate it just to do it like the other states. Our approach ensures others pay attention to Nebraska. Attention means we all win. Attention turns into dollars, a lot of dollars for Nebraskans. Campaigns have spent millions here. Ending our current approach guarantees those millions will forever disappear. Additionally, we live in a state where candidates actually visit and show interest in hearing from us. Why would we give that up? Please do not change to winner takes all.
Thank you, Mr. Brown, for your testimony. Hold that thought. Any questions from the committee? Senator Hunt.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being so active in the community. And I would say that to anybody who, played such a role in like getting out the vote for either side, for sure. I just want to know, and I only say this to you because it's maybe the 3rd or 4th time I've heard it. Just know there are many people in the legislature who would like to get rid of the unicameral. So don't act like that's so precious to us.
Right.
And be careful what you bring up too much. So thank you very much.
Cautionary tale.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hunt.
Any other questions from the committee? See none. Thank you for your testimony and your patience.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Hi there. I'm Doris Ruth Hibner, Doris Ruth, Hibner, Huebner. And this past election season, my husband and I started the Blue Dot Signs. Yes, I'm the other half of this couple. We were delighted that it led to an educational campaign regarding how our state awards electoral votes and benefits our unique voting system that it brings to the state. Now, the argument for changing our current voting system is, or it seems to primarily be, that 48 other states do it as winner takes all, and thus we should too. The argument for keeping our current voting system is because it's better for Nebraska. And that's why we're all here today, is what is best for Nebraska. And when we think about that, it's better because presidential candidates, both Democrats and Republicans, listen to us. They work with us. They court us in order to win our vote. It's like we're a mini swing state within a state. And why would we want to lose that power that it yields us? Now, news media also shines a spotlight on us. This last election season, our state was visited dozens of times by local and national media. We also had media outlets and international news media from Germany to France to Sweden to Spain. We had these people flying in. The entire world was, we were on their spotlight. They were putting us, Nebraska, on the map. Why would we want to lose that? This pumped money into our economy. It kept us on the map, and this helps our state also be attractive for business, looking for a place to call home. So that's an economic win, one that lasts beyond the election season. Now, there will always be political topics that Democrats and Republicans disagree on. In politics today, it seems like when one side wins, inevitably the other side has lost, but it does not need to be that way with LB3. Nebraska's current unique way of casting electoral votes is a win for our state. Nationwide voter turnout of registered voters is only 63%. In Nebraska, we achieved 76%. A 13% higher voter turnout is what happens when people feel like their vote and their voice matters. They are engaged in the political process. Let's not lose that. Our mini swing state brings in resources and encourages people from all walks of life to know that Nebraska is a state where they can do business. Their employees will feel at home and feel welcomed, whether they are red or blue. Let's continue to be groundbreaking. Let's continue to give Nebraska an edge, and let's continue to give all Nebraskans a voice. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I'm going to check to see if there are any questions from the committee. See none. Thank you for your testimony and your patience, Ms. Hoover. Welcome.
Hello, thank you all for all the work you do. I am Tim Conn, C-O-N-N. I am in opposition to both bills. First, I have a couple of comments regarding earlier discussion. Senator Kavanaugh, I will never grow tired of listening to you. And I might get in trouble with Senator Hunt later with one of my comments. Also, Senators Lippincott and Dorn, I just want to register my opposition to something that they said. I think they're gone, but I believe the Founding Fathers left it to our states to decide how to allocate the electoral votes. And I don't think doing what other states are doing, it was part of that mandate. Hi, I'm Tim Conn. My wife and I have been married for 54 years and have both lived in Omaha all of our lives. My father grew up in Cozad. My mother lived on a farm west of Omaha. I'm a proud Nebraskan. I'm proud of Nebraska volleyball, football, all of our wonderful neighbors, and I'm proud of the good life. I will say proud a lot in this because I am. I'm proud of our system of government that sends electors to Washington based on the desires of our individual congressional districts in the state. And I'm proud of our unicameral, which I have read considers the people to be its second house. We hope you consider keeping our system and not change the way our three districts vote for the electors. Since the early 1990s, CD2 has voted for blue candidates 3 times, but red candidates 6 times. I'm proud of our system because depending on the mood of our nation and of our state and the issues that are important at the time, we have the right in each of our 3 districts to decide who is the best fit to lead our country. We should showcase our system as a model for the rest of America to copy. Our system puts us on the map, it encourages our citizens in political conversation, and will welcome people to Nebraska knowing that whatever their political philosophy, they have a chance in Nebraska to have their voice heard and their vote count. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. See if there are any questions from Senator Kavanaugh. I see none. Senator Hunt?
I'm good, thank
you. There are no questions. Thank you, Mr. Khan, for coming in
Thank you
today,
very
taking
much.
the time and your patience. Thank you. Welcome.
My name is Vicki Parks, V-I-C-K-E-Y, Parks, P-A-R-K-S, and I'm here in opposition of both bills. I just want to acknowledge that so many things that I intended to say have already been said by people who are in opposition to this legislative change. I also want the committee to know that I've lived in Nebraska long enough that in Omaha for years, we never could get any representation from our community until we got district elections. Our votes never counted until we got district elections. And I want you to put yourselves in my shoes. How do you think we in the Black community and communities of color and poor people see this move? We see this as another attempt to take our power and our voice out of the political process. That's how we see it. We can't see it any different because you can't show us any different. We remember what it was to not ever get elected people by our votes in our community in our lifetime. I hope that you have the wisdom to know. I get calls from African Americans all over the country who say one thing you Nebraskans do besides good football, y'all got it right on how you elect, how you do the electoral college. I get that from all over the country. That is the one thing that we in North Omaha can be proud of for this state's political doings. I hope that you recognize that we want to be heard, that we want to be listened to, and the representative body, we want you to know that we're watching and paying attention to what you're doing. The reason a lot of my sisters and brothers aren't here is because they can't take off work and spend a day in Lincoln to talk about one political issue. That's why they're not here. And how would you feel if we in Douglas County decided that we want 51% of the vote, we can vote to move the unicameral to Omaha? How would people in Nebraska take that? I hope that you use your wisdom and keep a system that's worked and that represents the voices and the concerns of all of the people of Nebraska that you really represent. I have no other comments.
Thank you very much, Ms. Parks, for your testimony. I'm going to check to see if there are any questions from the committee. See none. Thank you for your time and patience. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee. I appreciate your time. My name is Amelia Aspen, AMELIA-ASPEN, and I am against LB3 and LR24CA. Additionally, I am a sophomore at Duchesne Academy in Omaha, and I will be a voter next time America has a chance to care about Nebraska in national elections. Before I start the speech I've prepared, I'd like to read something I've jotted down throughout this meeting. I've heard some comments saying the blue dot, as we have been calling it today at least, is splitting us apart. However, that is not true, or at the very least, that is not what we should be focusing on. If you look at us today, the blue dot has unified all of us. If we go to how all the other states have it, our opinion will be diminished, and neither party will have the passion we have now. I know Nebraska as a place that is very political. I have talked to my friends, the youth, from other states about politics, and they're not nearly as politically involved as I see most of my friends and peers from Nebraska. I mean, nobody has kids or high school students driving to the Capitol to talk about their political opinions. However, our electoral vote split in such a way gives people of all parties hope and helps people keep themselves educated on the ongoing in our politics. So let's keep the youth involved in politics, and the first step to that is keeping this electoral system so we don't go back. Okay, now for the one I prepared. A lot of people don't really understand how unique our way of life is here in Nebraska. Nebraska, as the flyover here in Nebraska, as they fly over us to get to bigger cities, we help out those who need it and encourage the strong to help themselves. We might not live next to big cities that people respect more, like New York or LA, but that does not mean that we don't have important ideas to share with the rest of America. Ideas that can balance the extremes, as well as ideas that can make everyone stronger. Our divided electoral system gives our country a chance to see what our values are all about. Because of it, we play a disproportionate role to presidential elections, because politicians have to at least respect what we stand for once every 4 years. I think our ability to award electoral votes the way we do helps us dilute coastal values with the ones we already know give us the chance to live the good life. Why not let the rest of the country see what makes us such a special place? I encourage you to vote against LB3 and LR24CA because it would be sad for America to lose our voice and the voice of young leaders.
Thank you for your testimony. Check to see if there are any questions from the committee. Senator Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Thanks for being here, Ms. Aspen. Do you know that Duchesne is in?
Versus them, we're talking
Yes,
about.
but you should, I commend you for being here. As a person who wrote a paper about this, as I said, in seventh grade, I still never testified at the legislature until I was actually in the legislature, so I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the committee, comments? Thank you, Ms. Aspen, for your
Thank you.
testimony and your patience. Thanks for being here. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Wesley Dodge, W-E-S-L-E-Y, Dodge like the car. I'm from Omaha, and I'm also associated with Represent Us.